Welcome to this week's show. I think we kind of agreed that not the Andrew Neil show has lost its appeal. We'd probably go out under 3 Men in a Blog. That seems to be the favoured name. Memorable enough. People know who we are. Apart from the fact that there are no women involved in it.
Yeah, we're still trying to find ladies who would like to participate.
I was going to say prefer young as well, but that would sound...
Why?
Simply because we are all old, but it would... See, whatever we say comes across wrong, doesn't it?
It doesn't matter how you put it.
And you're best at it. Yeah.
Anyway, so we are... what about introducing ourselves? You are?
Phil Attridge.
Laurie Stewart.
Stuart Lockhead, and we are 3 Men in a Blog. And we're not going to do it in a chorus. Well, we could try one day. Well, we've decided we will rant a bit today around a couple of issues. And one of them was, or is, the new question. The new referendum question as suggested by the pro-unionists, which says...
Should Scotland become an independent state?
Is the answer yes or no?
No, you either agree or disagree, apparently.
I think that's quite clearly a plot so that they won't have to campaign for a no campaign. The disagree campaign.
I mean, should Scotland become an independent state? Not an independent country, not independent of Britain. The word state puts a bit of confusion in there.
You're telling me it's the States of Jersey, that's what the Jersey's called, a state.
Well,
and we know it's not independent.
You can answer the question yes or no anyway.
That's true, so why do you need I agree, I disagree?
Because there's more letters in it and that'll be more confusing.
So I don't think they're going to get any mileage out of that. What about you?
I just think it's pathetic. Should Scotland be an independent country, yes or no? Seems rather simple. Anybody can understand that. But you've got these unionists sitting there, conspiring, sitting together. How can we hoodwink? How can we make it look as if we're not in that train? They're pathetic.
But the only question, well, the only sort of question that they could keep simple, that they would want to be answered with a yes, would be, should Scotland remain in the Union? Should Scotland remain part of the United Kingdom? That kind of version. Then they get to be the yes campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which is obviously what they want. But once again, they've been caught on the back foot, so they're now ploughing their way through muck. The Electoral Commission has already told them
they won't accept any. They will only accept a proposed question from the Scottish Government or the British Government. That's in their statute, how they were set up.
Oh,
it has to be by a government.
You mean the government? You mean the one that won the election with 45%, and the nearest party was Labour with 25%. Oh well, they're obviously the winners on 25%, then, aren't they?
So they get to choose the question.
But it's almost like I'm sorry, they can't be that stupid.
Oh, I think they can.
Oh, come on. They
must be.
But they don't think they are.
No, they must be plotting and planning and sitting around in a dark room with cigarettes and pipes and cigars and things.
So, is it's just another smokescreen?
Oh, witty.
maybe. But the whole thing appears to be, it has a distinct, I mean, they probably wouldn't agree, distinct smell of anti-Scottishness about it. I mean, you're Scottish, so maybe you're sitting there and they're just arguing. But I just get this simple feeling that they seem to, you're a waster, you're useless, you can never do anything on your own. It's that whole feel.
Too poor, too stupid.
I mean, not one unionist MSP turned up to the Records Office of Scotland exhibition on William Wallace.
It was in the Parliament.
It was in Holyrood, in the Parliament. There's loads of these unionists, not one of them. Now,
their office is only, 100 yards away from the lobby.
If a handful turned up, fine, the others are busy. But for not one Tory, Liberal or Labour MSP to turn up at that...
I think it was a plot.
Sounds deliberate. I'd like to ask a bookie, what would be the odds on nobody? Because this is something historic. You're looking at a couple of letters, 700 years old. One that he sent to Lubeck.
Just the famous Lubeck letter.
Lubeck letter saying, no, we're open for business.
And the other one's... And the other one's about...
the Unionists.
Yeah. And the other one's about...
700 years ago. It's,
the other one's a letter from the King of France introducing him to the Pope or something, is it?
something like that. But, you know, I'm a bit, you know, I like history, and looking at something like that, the fact that these letters have been around for 700 years, the letter was in a little bit, they've sent it across, but nobody's even that interested in Scottish history, and Wallace was a hero of Keir Hardie, a hero he fought with, and beside ordinary working men, trade unionists have used him and everything else, but our unionists, maybe they're just kind of embarrassed.
So, Phil...
Do you actually think that they've sat in a room and gone, ooh, didn't he go to the Wallace exhibition?
I don't know. Maybe
somebody with a camera might see us there.
That'll be an SNP front. I'm sorry, you're listening to something like that. That'll be an SNP. You know, the SNP have got this together. So
basically,
as Harold Wilson said, I'm like, just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean they're not being stupid. He didn't actually say that, but it wouldn't surprise me when you have a look at these.
All right, well let's
wouldn't surprise.
Let's move on, guys.
Yeah.
Let's get through this nice and
grow up
slickly.
You know, just grow up.
You've probably noticed that there is now a Labour supporters organisation for independence, and they're very active, and they've got meetings planned, and they're turning up at the march on the 22nd. I hope everybody's going. We need to get our own banner.
Yeah,
I think we should get our own banner together. 3 Men in a Blog.
Sorry.
You can all stand. You can walk behind 3 Men in a Blog at the march on the 22nd.
22nd of September.
And everybody, the speeches and all that are in Princess Street Gardens, from the stage there. So I think if we go, yes, we'll keep you up to speed on that. But make sure you come. 22nd of September, a march for the independence of Scotland. In fact, there'll be Labour, Conservative, Lib Dems, and even Greens, maybe. No, there'll be all different stripes of parties there looking for independence for Scotland. Oh, I believe there's even an organisation called Hippies for Independence.
Yes! This is the independence with the pound and the Queen and all the rest of that.
I wouldn't go down that road.
Is that, yeah?
It's a bit detailed for that.
No, when you have a look at one, let's just keep going, no,
we're just keeping it simple, Phil. It's just like,
yeah, I know.
Your independent country. You know, let's not make it all complicated.
I have problems with both sides, because they've both been a bit...
Are they?
Well, yeah, but I mean, we get the independence, we can then argue amongst ourselves rather than be told by Westminster whether we're staying in NATO or keeping our nuclear arms or what's going to happen.
Do you know the Welsh, the Labour Welsh First Minister wants the nuclear submarines based at Milford Haven. He's already trying to engineer.
Oh, quick, yeah,
when
good.
Scotland gets their independence.
Jobs.
I've got a funny feeling Plaid Cymru will do very well out of that.
Milford Haven is full of explosive things anyway, you know, like petrol and gas and refineries.
Which is great, so if they...
when it all goes, it can all go together.
Chain reaction with a huge cloud all over the western world.
The whole of Pembrokeshire can just disappear off into the Irish Sea. So that's what they want.
So what else are we going to have as well? Talk about.
Well, here we go. While we're in Wales, let me report that the Welsh, I think all Welsh politicians, the majority anyway, have agreed that they want to change the name of instead of the Welsh Assembly government, they want it to be the Welsh government.
Oh dear!
Even the Unionists wanted to be the Welsh government. Whereas in Scotland, the Unionists didn't want it to be the Scottish government.
That was something.
They were determined it was the Scottish executive.
No, they were screaming. They were throwing toys out the prams, lying on the floor, banging their feet, ripping in nappies off.
Are there going to be English independistas at this march, do you think?
I think there might be. I need to check. Eddie Bowen, who's kind of the name for... he leads a campaign for an English Parliament, and he's not too far right. That's the trouble with anything English nationalist. They tend to attract some of the nastiest people around. But Eddie Bowen is normally all right. In fact, he gets to write in well-known newspapers and turns up on television. And they don't have to invite him there. Not like Nick Griffin, which broadcaster were kind of obliged to invite him because he's got MEPs and things in his party.
For the moment.
Oh, one of them's already resigned from the party or got the sack or something.
You read an interesting article by an American this week, I believe.
Well, Glenn Greenwald is is one of America's best-known left-leaning journalists. He's the man the right in America love to hate. He stands up alongside Amy Goodman, Michael Moore, and Scorsese. What's his name?
Scorsese.
Martin Scorsese.
Ah, Scorsese, the director.
And it's Oliver Stone?
Oh, I meant Oliver Stone. That's what I
Oliver
meant.
Stone.
These guys all stand up for left and liberal and genuine liberal and democratic values in America. Well, Glenn Greenwald wrote in The Guardian today for the first time. Unfortunately, it's not in the print edition. It will be for American readers. It is definitely online, though. And I read it's a very long, thoughtful article. And he's been defending Assange on the basis that Assange, nothing to do with what he's been charged with, or not charged with, in fact, let's not go down that road, but the fact that most so-called left-wing journalists, and he actually targets in on the London media, so-called left-wing London media, they're jealous against Julian Assange actually stood up against the establishment and said, look what they're doing, murdering civilians. He's exposed more within 1 year of WikiLeaks and the entire of Western journalism in their entire lifetime, and they're just jealous of him. This is why they're attacking him.
But that, I mean, I believe you can see that in the way they treat Scottish independence as well.
Well, that's what this is what I feel is the link. It's not the Assange thing I want to discuss. It's that you have an institutionalised media in London, which, they're invited to all these launches, these press meetings. They go along to all these things, and they pretend to be liberals, but they're not.
Pet lefties, they're not real lefties.
They're allowed to nibble the hand that feeds them.
Yeah,
rather than bite it.
See our little tame pet lefty, look at them, just like little Polly Toynbee, who voted for the Lib Dems, actually. A lot of them voted for the Lib Dems. Really nice people.
What I found really interesting was about the expose of the MP's expenses didn't come from The Guardian or any of the left-leaning papers. It came from the Telegraph.
Yeah.
That was a very interesting point. When I lived in the Borders, there was somebody I met worked for the Telegraph. They actually lived in the Borders, and we used to meet them at parties and things. And this person was actually very much on the left, but worked on the Telegraph. And they explained that actually, strangely enough, in the Guardian newsroom, it was full of right-wing people, and there were quite a lot of left-wing people in the Telegraph. But this was back in the 80s. And the point of the story was, well, that's a little odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that was how it was regarded.
I mean, I certainly, I never thought I would buy a Telegraph, but there you are.
But anyway, the point of making this link to the Assange attack, and say, let's not dip our toe into anything to do with sex or anything like that, is that the situation of Scottish independence is a threat to the London institutions, whether you're talking about the City or Westminster or Whitehall, and also the media. And they're all in the same little boat together, as we know, given all the scandals of the last few years and all the different inquiries. And Scottish independence is a threat to that. And as such, you don't get a fair press in London, even if you meet so-called, even my English friends who are left-leaning and will listen to what I've got to say about Scottish issues, they still get all sparky about it.
Oh, because they subsidise you and everything else. I mean, it's massive subsidies. I was reading a bit that Norway, right now, Norway set up, has been extracting its oil around about the same time as we had, since the sort of 60s. They didn't bother setting up their fund.
Sovereign Wealth Fund.
Yeah, Sovereign Wealth Fund until 96, roughly 15 years ago. It now has
600
billion sitting in it, apart from what they've also done with the money in giving, a fairer society and welfare state and everything else. And worst case scenario, we've got 30 years left. We have about comparable amounts of oil. So, it don't need to be. So we could have $1 trillion lying in the bank. We
could be a very wealthy country if we were independent.
We are a very wealthy country, except it gets stolen. Maggie started it.
What would you do with? That's a good question, Phil. What would you do with the
Maggie
wealth?
Didn't start it.
Could we solve the poverty, the deprivation, and the shockingly short lifespan of the west of Scotland with that oil wealth?
You
No.
would,
No,
We
I'm
need a
sorry.
commitment and a
No,
political
it needs.
as well.
I mean,
the money wouldn't solve it, but the money could actually give you the means to start to look to solve it. And one of the main ways of solving it is education.
Instead of spending on nuclear
costs
weapons
money,
and illegal
not nuclear
wars.
weapons.
Well-
Decent housing, not the garbage housing that was built right across the west of Scotland in the 50s, 60s,
I'm sorry.
alive.
Don't even think infrastructure stuff like that.
Proper training.
What solves that is opportunity for the next generation and
Yeah.
the generation after
That's
that.
true. It's opportunity.
Education is part of that. Having jobs to go to, and frankly, jobs not just in Scotland. Being qualified to go and work elsewhere in the world and come back with that knowledge, or not. But it's about allowing our people to have the confidence to go for it.
Oh, it's all
And
investment.
that's about social changes, not about more money.
I left
Oh, no,
Scotland.
no,
I left
no.
Glasgow.
More money
to go
might
abroad.
make it easier
Well, that's why I said
in some
investment.
ways.
With an investment, you get the dividend later on. I mean, you're not going to get it now. I mean, sorry, but people that are waste of space now will still be waste of space if you've got hundreds of billions.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my point. The problem for me at the moment is that Westminster is cutting so deeply, so thoroughly, that you can forget about expanding the choice base, the opportunity base. I'm sorry, for every kid who's living on a council estate now that gets a chance, there'll be 2 who are living slightly better who won't get a chance because the money is just going to dry up totally, and they continually attack that segment of society that's least able to do for
Agreed.
itself.
Yeah. I mean, we're all agreed on that, and when we see that every day, I think we could. I think we'd have a special programme on that. It's a UK issue, for sure. Anyway, we should leave you with just sort of repeat what the new question is: that Scotland should become an independent state. And as I said, I do believe the states of Jersey, somewhere in the Channel Islands, are already a state, and they regard themselves. But are they independent?
No.
Well, actually, the biggest state around is the no campaign, isn't it? It's the bitter and better.
Thank you very much, guys. Goodbye.